Hey, welcome to Prop Talk. I'm Chris Call, as usual, with Mike Trudel.
Hey,
Mikey. Today, we continue our series on prop houses, Hollywood prop houses, with our guests today, Jim and Pam Elyea.
Greetings. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate being here.
Excellent. They run the renowned History for Hire in North Hollywood, which specializes in period props, correct?
We do. We specialize in period props and classic design.
Yeah, one of the things, before we jump in, what are you defining as period now? Because you've been around since 1986.
Well, it's funny because, somebody will call up and they'll go, I have a period show. And I go, okay, when does it take place? 1936, 1942? Yeah. They'll go, no, 2000. And it was like, okay, that sounds new, I think.
Right.
And, it's interesting because you wait long enough and eventually the stuff you're not using comes around. I wish I'd saved all those fax machines we bought in the 1990s.
Right.
Yeah. We could rent those like crazy right now.
Because, you define antiques normally by 20 years, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, it can be, yeah. Usually about, a generation, 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that something that like you are continuing to add to your inventory as the decades go by?
You have to continually refresh your inventory. And, you get new information. You think of a different way to do things. And so we are always trying to improve our stock. We're trying to make it something more interesting, something different, something people haven't seen.
Right.
Back when we started in the 1980s, we actually started, it was in our apartment, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, when we did Platoon.
Yeah, in Platoon. And we had this great little two-story apartment. And I think you shipped like 50 boxes.
85 boxes of military.
Wow. Where did they shoot Platoon?
In the Philippines.
Nice.
And we shipped all this right in the middle of the insurrection, overthrowing Ferdinand Marcos.
So we're shipping in flak vests and machetes and things like that.
We shipped grenades and bayonets.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
And the people at Customs had problems with the bayonets.
I'll bet.
Of all things. And we said, just tell them they're props.
Right.
Yeah,
went, okay.
So all our customs just go, movie prop.
That's nice.
Even now, it's just a movie prop. It'll be fine.
Oh.
But and then when the stuff came back from the Philippines, we actually didn't have a plan for when it came back.
Okay.
So it came back to the apartment, and our apartment was mostly industry people, but they got tired of the 85 boxes in the hallway.
Yes.
So that was the kind of the reason to buy or to get a building to put it all in and start running from there. And so we went to Chandler and Tahunga, which was, how many square feet was that?
4,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and
It's
then
about the size of our lobby now.
and then about 1989, Paramount decided to offload its prop departments. In the 80s, a lot of the studios decided not to carry their props anymore because it was just more beneficial for them cost-wise to use that land for sound stages or editing or other things. So that's when you see a lot of prop houses starting in the 80s. And it's funny because, we think of that now and that's like, my gosh, that's 50 years ago.
I know,
we've been doing
crazy.
it. But then we bought the bins at Paramount, and then we came over to 17,000 square feet. And then how long ago did we move into where we are now, which is like 33,000?
Christmas Eve of 1995.
Oh.
Wow. And Jim, you started it with your brother, is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Right. And so what was the impetus for you guys to start the prop house?
Well, I was trained and working as an illustrator.
Okay.
And going through that imposter syndrome thing. And I remember I was working on a thing late at night, and all of a sudden I couldn't draw.
Wow.
And I said, oh no, I've been faking it up till now. A whole career I was faking it.
Well, you were actually an illustrator for the networks. So he worked for a network and local television stations.
Right.
And if I can brag on Jim a bit, because he won't about himself, he was a very famous courtroom artist.
Oh,
and he did big trials like DeLorean, the Raiders when they moved, the McMartin trial. And he was just very well thought out and very well known. And he also did illustrations for marketing for Lucasfilms. In fact, the Reagan Museum, starting March through September, is having a show, and they're going to be featuring some of Jim's illustrations.
great.
in
Oh,
there.
very cool.
That's
That he
my
did.
neighborhood.
Oh, there you
I'll
go.
walk over.
There you go.
That's fantastic. And Pam, when did you come aboard?
I came in about when Paramount was when we got the stuff from Paramount in '89, and Jim and I actually met at Art Center College of Design. We both have design backgrounds.
Wow, that's fantastic.
He was illustration major, and I was a photography major.
Okay.
And so we have a bit of a mixed marriage here. You know,
Right.
I think photography is an art. He might disagree.
No, it's an art.
He's well trained.
One of the lesser arts, right? And we wanted to find something we could do together, that we could work together, and so this seemed to be a good matchup for us.
Were you
Right.
guys into like extreme? Was that a huge hobby of yours already, like collecting in antiques and stuff like that?
It was for me. My
Yeah.
mom had an antique shop when I was growing up.
Oh,
And
excellent.
we spent Sundays junking, as we called it.
Right.
And so it was just natural to me. And at one point, as the Hunter S. Thompson quote, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro.
Nice. And where did you grow up?
Texas and Kansas.
Texas and Kansas. Nice. I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of great antiques in those areas for sure. That's fantastic. So then you moved from the 4,000 square foot unit to where you are today,
Just down the street from where
just
we
down
are
the
today.
street.
Yeah.
And what's the square footage now of History for
We're
Hire?
about 33,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
much bigger than 4,000.
Much bigger, much bigger. More to keep an eye on, more to take care of. That's
yeah.
definitely so.
More to have to staff up. And
Yeah, yeah. But it's good. I like it. I definitely like it. But it's funny because we watch the evolution of props that we have,
Right.
and so you just get kind of proud because some of our props have really good resumes.
I'll bet. I was wondering about that. You probably have had stuff there since the beginning.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and so how do you maintain these props that are like some of them are over 100 years old?
Well, we even have some that are older than that. When props come in, we make certain decisions about, are we the right home for it? Because
Right.
sometimes we'll acquire something that really belongs in a museum. And I'll give you an
Right.
example of something that Jim just held on to for 30 years and just went to the Barrymore Museum back east, is that when he was cleaning out the bins at Paramount, there was a trunk. And who was that trunk from?
It was William Fox Studios.
Okay, Fox Studios, which was in Fort Lee, New Jersey, which
Okay.
only existed for a couple of years, probably in the teens, I would
I
think.
think around 1915.
Yeah, so he found this great trunk, and then we couldn't possibly rent it because it was, it's this great thing, but a museum didn't exist to
Right,
take it.
right.
So when the Barrymore Museum opened about 2 years ago, we worked with them, and then the piece has gone to them so they can have it on display there. So you make a lot of decisions like that. But we had props that went back to the Chic that were used in that. A lot of silent era props.
Wow. So and how do you come upon these finds? I mean,
Well, you buy bins of things,
Right.
and then they come to you. A lot of it came through Paramount. We found some really amazing stuff through there, and you just have to make decisions about. Anytime we take a prop, we're going to get rid of any kind of intrinsic value to it,
Right.
Because we're going to make it safer.
Sure.
We're going to get rid of the asbestos. We're probably going to get rid of lead paint.
Right.
We're going to make a lot of changes to it. So sometimes it's like this thing really should remain the way it is. So we need to find a good custodian
Sure.
for it. One of the people we work with a lot is Beth Whirlings, who is the collections manager for the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles,
Okay.
which has one of the largest collections in the world of motion picture props.
wow.
So she's pretty remarkable. So
bet.
so we'll work with her, or we'll call her and say, "Hey, we've got this," and she'll go like, "I got 20 of them. Rent it. Do something else with it."
Well, that's nice that you guys have that sensibility about you, because there's not a lot of historic preservation that's happening in Hollywood from what I could see, especially architecturally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate because if we don't curate and take care of our collections as prop people and set decorators, there's nobody else out there that's going to do it. When the Academy Museum originally opened, they weren't necessarily so much, I think, a collections museum, although you've donated things to the Science and Technology Council at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. He's on the history committee for
Okay.
the Science and Technology
Nice.
Council.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we've done things like, I think a dolly for their Technicolor camera maybe, or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, the ASC has a Cinerama camera. We had a Cinerama camera plate,
Right.
mounting plate that went to them too. So right now we're kind of in the process of like everybody sharing their stuff, trying to get together a
Sure.
full thing, restoring it.
Yeah. So, is there something that stands out in your mind, like that was like an amazing treasure that you found when you were going through stuff?
Yes, it's something Jim found and he gave it to me. And you asked the question of like, okay, if the place was burning down or there was an earthquake, what would you grab?
Right.
And it is a film magazine for 2709. It is labeled on the side HOWE. Had belonged to James Wong Howe back when camera operators in the early part of the 20th century were called camera operators because they owned the cameras.
Wow.
So that was his. And we've identified it that he used it when he shot
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
Wow.
And it's like, I have goosebumps now, but it's
Yeah.
like, James Wong Howe, you don't get better than him and Greg Toland, right? So that is my most beloved treasure that we have.
Nice.
That, of course, does not rent.
No, of course.
Is
No.
that on display in your office? or-
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to see you come in.
Yeah.
And one day I walked in my office and it was missing. And it was like, oh my
no.
gosh. And Richard Atkins, who's our dear friend, we've worked with Richard for 50 years. You used to work with him at the different networks. He had actually come into my office and borrowed it for a museum display.
I see.
And it was like, you have to tell me.
Leave
if
a
you
note.
take it. Yeah. Call me, text me, do something. But I'm going to venture that probably yours would be Live and Lily. You want to talk about Live and Lily?
Yeah. A few years ago, one of the studios was bulldozing some of their sets.
Okay.
And as studios did,
Sure.
they used them for prop storage before that. So these were things that were outside.
Right.
And I got a call, and they said, you can have anything you want back there, but you got to haul it off tomorrow.
Wow.
And I went, and there was a lot of stuff that was junk, deserved to be hauled off.
Right.
But there was this giant, probably 3 foot by 5 foot painting on canvas of a reclining, not nude, but reclining bar lady,
Wow.
like you see in all these different movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is the one you've seen in all these different movies.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was made in 1940,
That's fantastic.
and it was scripted. Alan Hale Sr. and another actor were coming to town, and there's this guy hawking. He says, come on and see Live and Lily. She breathes, she undulates. And the painting was rigged with her abdomen cut out.
Wow.
And a latex panel put in.
Sure.
And then with
So she could breathe.
hydraulics.
That's fantastic.
Anyway, it was also used 5 years later in a Joan Crawford movie where it was the back of a bedding parlor, and her husband, the mean guy,
Wow.
came into the door and said, "Get that out of there." It was also seen in the background of The Great Race, Briscoe County Jr.
Wow.
And the last two.
That's fantastic. Where does it live right now? Is it at your home or in?
Oh no, it's at work. But I think you forgot to mention one of the most important films that it was in, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, really? Nancy
Yeah.
Haig used it.
Nancy Haig used it. She also used it in Buster Scruggs.
Wait a minute.
But there's a scene where you're in a bar, and she hangs over your bar in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
What bar? I wonder.
You remember where they're doing the Western scene?
Oh. Right. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
There were a few props in
Bounty
that, Chris.
Law. Bounty Law. Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
The Western part.
The Western part. Well, I mean,
It's
we
the
built,
second movie in the two movies of the movie that you're doing.
I know. I thought maybe it was there's a saloon in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that was at the Spawn Ranch
Oh, right.
that
yeah.
never made it. We didn't
No.
even shoot in it,
Yeah.
let alone
Yeah.
it making it on camber, and it was beautiful. And I thought maybe it was there, and so I
Yeah.
got confused. But now I see.
So we're kind of being very gentle with her right now and archiving her because Well, what, she's probably about 80 years old now, so
Wow.
we want to make sure she's safe on set.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm assuming that you probably like have a whole staff of people who do nothing but restore.
Yes, yeah, that's always a big thing for us, and a good portion of our facility is really craftspeople to restore and do a lot of these arts that people just don't have anymore. I mean, a good example is fountain pens, period fountain pens. There used to be the fountain pen
mess.
shop out in Monrovia,
Right.
and then when he died, his daughters didn't want to keep doing it, so it's like, all right, we're going to have to man up and learn how to do this ourselves. The guy that used to repair Ronson lighters, who lived around the
Right.
corner from me, he died. And so it's like, all right, we're going to have to figure out how to do this ourselves.
Yeah.
So we are developing that next layer of craftspeople.
Yeah, I was thinking the same must hold true for your salespeople. I mean, like a regular prop house, you have to have some sales experience. But
Sure.
I mean, I'm assuming that you try to hire people who have some sense of history.
Yes, where we have had salespeople come in who've worked at other prop houses, really, you're looking for somebody who has a predisposition to a certain kind of prop,
Right.
and then also somebody who's going to be bringing something new to the table. So we have so much musical instruments and equipment that we hire a lot of times musicians, people
Yes.
who've actually been on the road. For military, I talked about John Tibbetts, who we work with, who's fantastic. I mean, he's been in the military. He does reenacting. In fact, this weekend we have him in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Ohio Valley Military Collectors Show of Shows.
Oh, wow. Cool.
The largest show.
Yeah, cool.
And so he keeps texting me pictures of all these things, and I keep texting, "Don't buy it. Don't buy it. No, no." Nobody's going to do the Spanish-American War movie. All right.
Until next week.
Yeah. And then we negotiate. It's like, buy one.
Right.
All right.
Okay,
And then
fine.
Yeah, and get the guy's number. We'll be fine.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, so given that, you have a beautiful research department as well, right? Because that's a huge part of, when we're doing historic props, that's like number one thing that you get into. Like, so when like somebody like Once Upon a Time comes to you, or Babylon comes to you, is that like the first thing that you do is get into the research of everything?
Yeah, it is. So someone comes to us with a period project, and a lot of times we will get involved pretty early in the game. It's not unusual for Jim to get a script and maybe the producer will ask him, is this doable?
Right.
Should I even start pricing it? Is the stuff out there or not? So they will work with him on that.
Oh, that's good.
But we certainly will start kind of what I like to call it's kind of the basic research, which is let's look at the time period.
Right.
Like if we talk about Babylon, which was I think 20s, 30s, maybe.
Right, 20s.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of films in that period. We did Chaplin in 1990, which was Stuart Craig was the production designer on that. We've did The Artist, which was I think it was Larry Paul was the production designer on that, and then now to do this one with Florencia. And they each have a different view and a different take of it. So
Sure.
we're doing some research, but then, we talk to the prop master. It's like, what is your director's point of view? What is
Right.
your decorator's point of view? What does everybody want to see here? I mean, Christopher Nolan's going to make a different Oppenheimer than another director would.
Yeah.
So, we could do all this phenomenal research, but if that's not what they want to
Right.
see, I'm just wasting everybody's time.
Sure.
So we do a lot of show and tells. Let's go back to Chaplin. We did a show and tell with Sir Richard Attenborough and Stuart Craig back in 1990. And Larry Bird was the prop master then, the great Larry Bird, phenomenal prop master.
There was a prop master named Larry Bird.
Yep.
I'm not familiar with that.
That's amazing.
At the rap at the rap party for Chaplin, Richard Attenborough stood up and he said, "I just want to say congratulations and nice things to Larry Bird, the best prop master I've ever worked with in 50 years in show
Wow.
business."
That's something.
And
Wow.
I just said that should be his resume.
Yeah, exactly. Just play that back.
Yeah, good basketball player, even better prop master.
Right.
That's
So
funny.
when we were working with Babylon, we did a show and tell with Damien Chazelle and the whole team. And Gabe Perello, of course, was the prop master on that. And there's a scene in it where prop money heavily figures in.
Right.
And
Yes.
we actually have a collection of prop money throughout the ages from the teens up till now.
Wow.
So we have a notebook of that. So
Nice.
she was able to take that notebook to him and say, all right, this is what it was. What do you want to see?
Right.
Tell me how we can make this more,
Sure.
more what you want.
And did he change it?
I think it probably influenced him a bit.
Sure.
I definitely do. There was another film we did, Public Enemy, with Michael Mann was the director on that. And so it takes place in 1933 with Johnny Depp. And he was interesting. He wanted everything to look brand new for 1933.
Right.
He didn't want anything to have any use wear on it or stuff like that.
see.
So you change that and you repair it in a different way.
Right.
Then you go to something like Babylon. And I think you had done a beautiful restoration of a Duarc light. You'd had it painted and pinstriped and everything. And he didn't want that. He wanted it worn and torn and
Right.
beaten up in a very different look. So, we don't determine the look of the film.
Sure.
What we do is we give people options.
Right.
And then we try to match what you need to be taking on set with what we've got, and then how can we make this work
Absolutely.
together?
Yeah, that's always challenging for me whenever I've done period, because people have this predisposed notion in their head that something that's old looks old.
Right.
But if you're doing it in the period of which it was brand new. So, and then you show them something that looks brand new and they're like, that doesn't look right. And it's like, well, that's because you weren't there
Right.
in 1930.
Yeah, or people will look at something and they'll go like, well, that's not the, you're doing a film in the 20s. They go, well, that's not the right color. It should be more amber. It should
Right.
be more warm. And it's like, yeah, you're just looking at a color. It's 100 years old,
Yeah.
that has a lot of smoke damage on it.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So they did have colors back then.
And that's another challenge, I'm sure, that you face all the time when it comes to paper props, because they don't hold up very well over
No.
time. So, and I've been in your expendables room, and I've seen, you guys collect a lot of old, like cups and packaging and stuff like that. But you also have a graphics department to recreate things, correct?
We do. I mean, we're more the place that's going to create actual real product. I mean, we do that for what I want to say, major product placement when they're trying to do something more period. We'll
Right.
do it. But the thing is that yes, something that's made out of paper maybe would hold up for 4 rentals. It won't really hold up much
Right.
past a year. But the reason you don't get rid of it is you save all this stuff
Yes.
and it becomes trash, so that when you have Peter Clark and who else was it? Helena, that's doing Perry Mason, and they need to do a big pit of trash. You can go, here's 600 cans of period labels.
Right.
You just go throw your trash away.
Sure.
Or Guillaume and Oppenheimer, where there's a scene of security going through their trash. We can say, hey, here's stuff you can put in there.
Right.
It already has some age to it.
Right. And I'm sure that a lot of things you get in that may look like it's not going to hold up, you use as reference to recreate.
Yeah, I would say certainly.
Yeah, we have a big archive.
Yeah.
A big archive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim, I think one of the interesting stories is if you talk about World War I equipment from when we first started in the 80s till now.
Oh, yeah. When we started, World War I equipment was, 60 years old, and it was still tolerable. But you had 35 years being in business on that. It's like it's approaching 100 years old. And you really don't want to send out something that's 100 years old.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't hold
well,
up.
and again, that's another question, especially when it comes to props, because again, we talked about the fact that you guys service set decorators as much as you do property people, and possibly even more, which is unlike a lot of prop houses. But when it comes to props, we all have an adage that, one is as good as none. So what do you do when you have people coming in and say, oh yeah, that's a really great piece, but I need 2 or 3 of them?
We make them.
Yeah,
You do?
And I'm going to say nowadays we 3D print them.
Wow, okay, great.
You certainly have to do that. And then sometimes we'll just make the choice to remake the whole thing,
Right.
so and make it a little bit more friendly. We have a very, talking about that too, is like we have a really extensive system to keep track of the things we make and how we make them, the materials that we use, so that if somebody were to come in, a good example would be when you made up the Titanic life vests, and
Right.
these life vests might go into water, so we have to keep very detailed records of what they're made out of, when they were made, so that
see.
when a prop master comes in to rent it, I can give that information to the stunt coordinator,
Right.
so he could see if he feels safe
Sure.
using this on set.
Yeah,
or
that makes
not.
sense. Well, I know what I wanted to ask you guys about, because you mentioned about instruments, and I know you guys are very well known for doing period instruments. and like you say, you bring in a lot of musicians to actually set these. Now, so when a lot of these need to be functioning, so you have people who like refurbish them or.
Right. So our instruments are, for the most part, working and functioning and really good condition. The amplifiers, we get those checked out all the time. They have we have a maintenance program that we go through on them. It's just instruments need a lot of work. They need a lot of care. And Jim has a very strong music background. I mean, you've been a drummer since you were a kid.
Nice.
We even still have a drum set in our living room.
I love it.
Sounds good.
I'm sure the neighbors love it.
Yeah, the cats really love it, that's for sure. But I think it can be overwhelming because how many guitars do we have? Maybe
A couple hundred.
a couple hundred, yeah. And then the period drum kits. I mean, there's a lot of time and a lot of work that goes into making these drum kits from the 20s and 30s.
I'll bet.
And getting them together. It just doesn't happen overnight. There's props that Jim's been working on for 15, 20 years before they even hit the shelf. I mean, rebuilding like our Technicolor camera.
Right.
That was a long thing. And you're rebuilding a VistaVision now, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so they actually will function?
They could. We're not set up to maintain the optics on it,
Sure.
so we disable them so they won't.
Right.
I think people will be disappointed, but people have run film through our cameras.
Right.
The great Sven Nyquist, he ran film through one of our Universal cameras, so that was pretty fun.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
do most
cool.
of your refurbishing of most of your stuff in house, or do you ever send any of the stuff out to get refurbished?
Well, it's a little bit of both, and a lot of it really kind of has to do with time. How much time we have to do things.
Yeah.
And, putting the right person on the job for the right amount of time. So over, the past 40 years we've been doing this, we just have a really incredible group of people that build and refurbish and make stuff, and it's been working out wonderful.
Make 100-year-old thing work, man. Like that sounds
Right.
crazy.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
especially like mechanical things.
Yeah.
Again, I refer back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood
Right.
and the reel-to-reel tape recorder that I
Yeah.
used. I just bought every one I could find on eBay, and again, most of them didn't work, or some
Right.
of them worked in some ways, but not in other ways, and I had to just keep swapping them out. So what do you I'm sure that's a challenge that you guys find all the time. So you rehab these things as well?
Absolutely. There has to be some level of functionality to it to make it an action prop. If you have a tape recorder, it shouldn't just be static.
Right.
It definitely needs to move. We're talking about some props here that are a little bit more complicated, but even a simple prop, go back into Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You had a scene where your main actor is walking down it's a big dialogue scene where he's walking down, I think it was LAX, and his luggage
Right.
is being pushed by Brad
Yes.
Pitt, and it's on a cart. So it's like, there really are two props. It's the luggage and it's the cart.
Right.
The luggage is
Right.
brilliant. The cart you got from us,
Yes.
we had to rebuild that cart so that
Yes.
it was silent.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
that means that you take it down, and because normally it'd just be like, here's a card, go through luggage on it.
Right.
So, and then we had to figure out, how can we do the wheels? How can we do the joints so that this is going to be just really work for your scene? And, we've done our job if you don't notice it.
No,
You know?
I definitely noticed
No,
it
no, but-
because I was
Well,
Because I was-
you'll notice.
You never said thank you.
I didn't. I'm so
you
sorry.
No, I'm kidding. You
But
did.
no, I was because that was a concern that we had for sure, and unfortunately, it was on a flat ground that he was pushing it on. But
Yeah.
but again, they are metal wheels, so it was.
Right. So
Or no, those were rubber wheels, I guess. But
Yeah.
it was a big. Okay, and then you also repainted it for us too, which is
yeah,
great.
I mean, we'll go through and do a lot of things. And for Doug Fox, when he was doing what was that? The Offer. And then so
The
we had
Offer,
to,
yes.
yeah, and that was a very specific thing where it was it a Mitchell BNC or was that a Panavision conversion?
BNCR.
A BNCR, and then it was on an Elyea dolly, which looks a lot like a spider dolly, but it's an Elyea dolly. And so you get something like that, you go, this is going to be easy, and then you go like, hey, guess what? It takes different size track than what the other stuff's on.
Right.
So you're like all of a sudden going, okay, I got to find dolly track that's going to work with this. So there's no easy prop. There isn't. And you just can't take it for granted that
No.
it's going to be fine, because no, it's like start agonizing about it now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has been like your most challenging project that you can remember?
Would you say we did a show in Antarctica? What would be?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that wasn't challenging. It ended
Which is
kind of
cold.
weird.
Yeah, that was just kind of an odd thing, but
What show did you do in Antarctica? Don't move on from that.
Yeah, I know, right? What's the show?
so Sir Edward Shackleton, there was a big thing about it was coming up with an anniversary of him being in Antarctica, and so we did a lot of props for that. And to kind of give you the whole picture of it, so we're talking about something, was it 1914, 1912 maybe?
14.
1914. So they have some hero props that they need. They need certain kind of canned goods and provisions. Stephanie McMillan, who was the set decorator, we met her on Chaplin, and she did all the Harry Potters. So, I called her in England. I said, can you go get this stuff for me so that we can duplicate it and make it look new? So she's working in England, sending me things that we can then make up. And so we get this stuff together, and then it gets held up in customs in, Peru, because I think Uruguay, or I forget what it's called, because they think the IMAX camera is a nuclear device.
Oh my God.
And I remember the producer going, I don't even know who to make courtesy payments to on this to get it through. And it's like, okay. So anyway, there's all these props that we've created, and they're wonderful. And back then, we used to engrave props with HFH on it.
Right.
So
We're over that.
yeah, we're over that. We don't do that anymore. So anyway, so they have the camera boat, and then they have the Sir Edward Shackleton boat following, and then the Sir Edward Shackleton boat sinks in bad weather. Big surprise. We're in Antarctica, right? And so all we could think about is when they go and they find this boat that's sunk 100 years from now, they're all going to go like, oh, this is from 1914. And look, it even says HFH on it. So like, our props are going to kind of get mushed into when the original thing happened. But yeah, that was probably the weirdest one we ever had. I think.
That's crazy. That actually, I mean, the logistics in filming in Antarctica is just ridiculous. Because don't you have to it takes like a week and a half just to get there, and you have to go out of Africa and stuff like that.
It's crazy. And then we do a lot of films down in Australia. So during the pandemic, we had sent a bunch of things down there for Elvis. And so, once again, it's 6 months or 6 weeks to get down there.
Because you have to crate ship it and all that? Or
Yeah, it gets packed. I mean, you can airship things, but, a lot of times you're shipping so much stuff. And so it's always fun to go down there.
Yeah.
Do things.
I can
we did a bunch
imagine.
of stuff on Elvis, so that was pretty cool.
So have you guys ever gone on location a lot with props for any reason?
Well, why don't you talk about when you went to 12 Monkeys with Terry Gilliam?
Ooh.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, Gary, who ran a shop, and I went back east. I think it was Maryland.
That was Harlocker. I think Doug Harlocker was the
Okay.
Doug Harlocker, and there was a World War I sequence in it with World War I French soldiers, and we were passing out. We went to just help out, learn a bit, and as we were passing out stuff, the assistant director came up and he said, What do you have for the prospective people? And we went, pardon? And he said, the prospective people. We went, don't know what you, what?
With the perspective people.
And he said, it's Terry Gilliam. He wants to use little people in the background to make a forced perspective.
Wow.
Oh.
In a trench.
And we thought, would have been nice to have told us about this. I mean, we could have done something because the French had a little half-scale canteen that they used.
Right.
And we said, no, they're far enough back, we're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just worked that way.
Thank God that
It's
worked
Terry
out.
Gilliam. I was like, okay, great.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's going to happen. But, we'll go on set a fair amount of time. But, nowadays, so much can be done with, we just do a lot of FaceTime.
Right.
I was working on a show up in Vancouver, and I could just FaceTime with the DP about how we were rigging a camera for him because, cameras are so small right now. I guess the Mini Aries, the big thing that everybody's using.
Okay.
And so they're building those into bigger cameras. So, we'll work with them and show them things and say, we can do this, we can do that. How do you want to get this whole thing together?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat. You guys must know, I'm assuming, most specialized antique collectors in town, don't you?
Well, yeah, we do. Well, and actually all over the world. And it's funny because sometimes people, I don't know how they find us, but they'll find out we did a show and they fixate on a prop in that show.
Interesting.
And years ago we did LA Confidential with Russell Crowe. Was that was one?
Yep.
And so he's we had to make a special watch for him.
Okay.
Because he wanted one.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. And once a year I get an email from this guy going, the Ingersoll that he wore, okay, are you could you sell that to me? Can I have that? And I went, well, we don't deaccession our props like that.
Yeah.
We like to have them available for the next prop master
Sure.
that comes in because, as we all know, a hero prop on one show becomes a tertiary prop on another show. And,
Sure.
You want to have these things in the industry. And but once a year I get a call from him.
That's
still?
amazing.
Yeah, still.
Same conversation.
And it's like, thanks, honey, I got your name on the list if
It's
we
amazing
ever do
what
that.
people pick out and film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things is that every film is somebody's favorite film.
Right.
There's somebody out there who I'm sure Harlequin is their favorite film, and it's a
Right.
great film. But it's like that's their jam. That's what they love.
Sure. And just the period. It evokes such emotion for period people. I got comments about Brad Pitt's watch.
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
Once Upon a Time because it was this bullhead watch, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it was released, but it was 1967 and not 65, and I'm like, oh my god. And then they took issue with the fact that the band was different, but we purposely gave it a different band. But but it's scary as a property master when you see these comments of people, man, they are watching everything.
Oh yeah,
it's a little
watch people.
Especially
watch
people
people
are
crazy. Yeah.
Attenborough had a great philosophy because he said, because he had done Gandhi and Chaplin and a lot of autobiographies like that, and he said, it's the story of their life. It's not their life.
Right.
So it's like you're telling a story. So you're going to borrow from different times. And period films most of the time are metaphors, for things.
Sure.
So, it's a little bit of history of what we remember, but that's overlain with the story we're trying to tell now. And sometimes if we use something correct for the period, the audience is not going to understand what's going on.
Right.
So we have to find a way to make it look a little bit more, I'm going to use more contemporary elements in it so that it's more understandable.
No, and that's true. And I think, great filmmakers understand that as well, and not being so dogmatic about every little thing, like Quentin was that way.
Yeah.
When, like when the cops are coming out of the house with the Tex Watson's gun, I was like, that would be a paper bag. I said they wouldn't put it in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
And he's like, he looked at me like he thought I was crazy. He's like, why wouldn't we want to see the gun? I'm like, I said, no, I get it, but it should be in a paper bag. He goes, who's going to know that? I'm like, me. He's like, yeah, okay, no.
Oh, what? That wasn't convincing.
This is, and I tried to sell it a little bit. He goes, it wouldn't be as like off as if somebody was holding a cell phone. I'm like, well, maybe. And he goes, come on. I'm like, okay. No. Sorry.
So I'll go back in my hole.
That's right. I'll go back. But I had to say something. It's on me to say something because somebody's going to pick it out at some point. Although they didn't. The one thing that they busted me on was the glue trap. Okay, when I think I've talked about this ad nauseum probably on this podcast, but scene where
get it out.
Yeah,
get it out.
I know, man. I need justice, man.
Yeah. This is a safe place.
Yes. When Brad's character goes into the George Spawn's house, and there's that really tense scene he walks through, and he looks in the corner, and there's a rat
Oh,
Right.
in a trap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's easy. You know, we'll get a nice big fat juicy rat trap and blah 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 blah. And Quentin's like, no, it's got to be a glue trap. And I'm like, glue trap?
No.
And I'm like, I did the research. It was like 1986 on a glue trap. I'm like, Quentin, that's just not it. Nope, it's got to be a glue trap. Mm-hmm. I want to see him struggling in the glue trap. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get past this? I'm going to get crucified.
Oh, yeah.
If I use a glue trap. So what I did is I built a frame out of wood, and I put the glue trap, the plastic glue trap, in it with the glue exposed, and then I changed the color of it a little bit because in my mind, how I justified it was George Spahn developed the first glue trap.
Everybody knows that.
Yes, of course.
I'm going to go pull the patent right now, man.
Yeah, but they still busted me on IMDb. You know,
Of course. But at least you fought it. And you can't,
I tried.
Like, it's not something that the director can come back to you and be like, you were wrong. I was like, oh, I said it.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but
That's exactly it.
that's funny.
So, talking about period props, baseball, I mean, the great metaphor in so many movies.
Right.
So we have a huge baseball collection that goes from the 1800s on up to modern day. And Jim and Lauren have just put in a whole lot of work over the past years rebuilding our stuff. Because we carry two kinds of merchandise. We carry baseball equipment that looks like it has been around 50 years. And baseball equipment looked like it's the 1920s and I just took it out of the box.
Right.
And one of the things that we find is like when we have modern people playing with baseball, it is hard for them to play with those older gloves.
I'll bet.
It's just really tough. And we did a movie called 61 with an Asterisk. I think C.J. Maguire was the prop master on that, maybe. And they would film at the studio. We were using real 60s glove, and the guys would play, but they would play so hard they would tear up the gloves. So I'd pick it up in the morning, we'd repair it during the day, and then we'd take it back at night.
Wow.
So people just, you are used to using the props differently nowadays.
Yeah, it makes sense. Which is interesting because a lot of times they were built better back then, but I guess they just don't hold up that well as well. And I guess the design is different as well.
Baseball stuff, all the extras that are hired for the thing are baseball players.
Yes.
And unconsciously, this is their shot.
Right.
This is as close as they'll come to being in the show.
Right.
And so they play their hearts out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I see. That's good.
But that reminds me, we have a good story about a baseball prop.
Yeah, please.
So we did The Sandlot. Terry Haskell
Okay.
was the prop master on that.
Yeah.
Great Terry Haskell. And the show revolves around a baseball that's signed by Babe Ruth.
Right.
So I think we did and a dog takes it and runs off with it.
Right.
So I think
The
Beast, yeah. So I think we made 10 or 15 Babe Ruth balls. And so we did them up, and the stitching was a certain color. So we ship them to Terry. Terry calls us. He calls Jim, and he goes, listen, the producer has a problem. And Jim goes, what? And he goes, well, he said, every ball is signed in the same place. And so what we had to do is because we matched to auction catalogs, so we have the history of Babe Ruth baseballs all being signed in the same place because he's Babe Ruth.
Right.
He always signs it in the same place.
That's his spot. So anyway, one of the problems we had on that is that, and this is good for homemakers to know, if you want to get ink out of something, put dog spit on it. Because the dog, when he would take the ball, would dissolve the Babe Ruth signature.
Really? No way.
Yeah, it was like, wow.
And we had to have a dozen identical Babe Ruth signed baseballs hand done.
Yeah.
And the stitches, the most efficient way to do it was to hand paint the black stitches blue.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Times 12 baseballs.
Yeah.
Wow, that's tedious.
Yeah.
So anyway.
We got real good at it.
Anytime you need any stitching redone.
Yeah,
So
right.
You know
talking
where to go.
a minute ago about portraying different time periods and when you have to be careful.
Yes.
We were doing a TV movie with Ellen Freund called Mrs. Santa Claus.
Okay.
It was set in 1913. And at one point we were at the prop house arguing over some prop, and it was, could we use it for 1913? Because it really came out in 1914.
Oh, man.
And at one point somebody had said, it's a movie about a lady who flies through the air in a magic sleigh. We can fudge 1 year.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think there's so many things that just come down to being 1 year off.
Right.
I was just watching a movie the other day that were like, oh, when did this song come out? Because they're all singing it in a car, and I was like, oh, it came out 1 year after this movie's supposed to take place. I was like, oh my god, they're 1 year off. And I bet you they had the same type of conversation, because like when it gets to 1 year, you're like, well.
Yeah, our suspension of disbelief has been ruined. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
I'm out of the zone.
We refer to it as the prototype.
I know you could justify anything, really.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, sometimes you have to do it because the emotion that thing is going to create is more important than it being authentic. Mm-hmm. Okay, like again, I can't really talk too much about it, but there's a movie that's being shot now where they wanted the kids to be having a Nerf gun fight, but it was like 2 years off from when Nerf guns came out. But it's like, yeah, but it's a Nerf gun, man. You got to have that Nerf gun fight. So I don't know what, I'm not doing that film now, so I don't know what they ended up doing. But
Bet you're excited to see what they end up.
I do, I was like, because I came up with like these bow and arrows, with the suction cups. They could be chasing each other around with that. That would be period correct, but I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but the audience expects to see something, and so it's fine. It's fine.
And if it's close enough, again, it's not like they're running around, doing laser tag.
Yeah.
In 1980 or whatever. So.
Yeah. Yes.
But again, as a property master, though, I find myself like wanting to fight that fight about authenticity, but I've learned over the years that you gotta like loosen up your grip on the reins a little bit when it comes to that.
Stuart Craig, who is a production designer we worked with on Chaplin and a couple other films, Beggar Vance. He did Beggar Vance, and that was the great Eric Nelson, prop master, did that one. I asked him, I said, so what's the most important thing that advice you could give to somebody? And he said, what you do is you pick a look and you stay with it.
Right.
So, if you're not going to go past a certain time period, don't do it. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do it more than once. Do it a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's very good. Very true. So what are the other challenges of doing period props? I mean, from what I understand, you guys are the only one who are doing exclusively rentals, period rental props. Right?
Yeah, but you know what? We do so much modern product. We're huge in commercials. We're huge in music videos.
Okay.
And if you think about it, it's because in commercials, if you've got like, let's say an iPhone.
Yeah.
And you're doing a little iPhone commercial, you want that to be the newest, brightest, shiniest thing in that shot.
Right.
So everything around it should have some use wear to it. For our props, I mean, we have a lot of things that are highly restored, or we even like to say over restored. And, but we believe a lot about preserving in place, meaning like, let it kind of run through its natural life and get that natural wear on it, because it becomes a character piece,
right? And
it tells a little bit of a story.
Absolutely.
So, that's what's interesting to us. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, how can we maintain this thing and keep it moving forward? And at one point, you just go, we really need to fresh it up or make a new one. But it just you get these things together and they just work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about doing having product that's period and working with product placement. How does that work? I mean, do you get like?
Well, somebody might, product placement and integrated advertising is such a big deal. We have a strong sensibility of working with brands to get them the way they looked in a very respectful way and all that, and so that they can be used in a production. And sometimes those brands didn't really exist during that time period. Well, all right, we'll figure out something. But because we as I said, we went to Art Center College of Design, and that's all about brands and logos and things like that. Absolutely. So we're very sensitive to that, and very respectful of it. People put a lot of money and a lot of time and effort into creating the right brand to sell their product, and we want to make sure that their product looks good. We get people coming to us from those brands wanting to rent their own product.
Nice.
Because they want to just say, well, can I get it from you, and then we can use it, and then we'll give it back to you after we finish our soft drink commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know like one of the challenges, like with a speed graphics camera, are bulbs.
Yeah.
So I know, having gone through that before, that's like a highly sought after commodity.
Yeah. So it's difficult because there are some things in our business that are just getting more and more difficult to find. And you're talking about the bulbs that have the magnesium filament inside of them that they implode and you can only use them once.
Right. And
nobody makes them. So you're kind of looking for older brands and to see what people have. And plus, there's a shelf life to some of those things. I mean, these bulbs it's not just like, oh, I got 12 bulbs, I can go use them. You have to inspect the covering of each bulb because each of them need to be coated. If that coating has been compromised, like if you feel it, it's a little bumpy and all that, that means rather than imploding, it could explode. So, if somebody rents 200 bulbs from us, I have to have someone go and look at each individual bulb to make sure that it's not compromised on the outside.
Are you constantly buying these bulbs off of eBay?
Well, you buy them wherever you can find them.
Yeah.
You can. And there was even one period at the very beginning where it wasn't even magnesium filament. It was like a foil. You look at them and they look like foil.
Right.
That only existed for a few years. I mean, we have some of those bulbs. And one of them actually I just sent to the Reagan Museum for this display we're doing on how lightsabers are made. But
you should tell that story before you go to You've told it to me before. I think it's a good one to tell
this
story. So
the speed graphics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but anyway, this foil, the reason it only lasted for about a year or 2 years is because if I had a camera and I was shooting a flash and you were shooting next to me, my flash could set off your flash.
I see.
So it was highly
how
just the brightness of it.
Really?
Yeah. So
the brightness could ignite.
It could ignite another bulb.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not like the magnesium filament that just needs a boost of power going to
Right.
it. This one was pretty volatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Sounds lethal.
I've never had that happen, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So what does your stock of these bulbs look like now?
We have a lot.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
I think the most we ever did was when we sent 10,000 to Peter Jackson when he did King Kong.
Jeez.
And if you think about them, we sent him the large bulbs, so they're the same size as a household bulb.
Right.
yeah.
So I mean, it's just to think about the amount of money it costs them to ship 10,000 bulbs from Elyea down to New Zealand to do the movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Plus the cost of the bulb itself.
Yeah.
Because they're not cheap.
Yeah.
But nothing burns like them either.
No, and
it's got such a beautiful burn.
It does, and there's different kinds of bulbs. There's some that they're called AP bulbs that have a slower arc to them. So if your DP wants to do a shot of that bulb kind of getting brighter and downer, it's because normally they're just kind of an on-off. This one has a very slow arc to it.
Right.
Focal plane, I'm sorry, they're focal plane bulbs. Because a focal plane on a camera is, it's not just an iris opening and closing, it's actually a slit in the back of the camera that's exposing the film. And so that gives you a much longer sustain, so that'll give you a really beautiful burn.
Yeah.
If you think about, God, what was that movie? The Natural. Those are probably focal plane bulbs.
Sure.
Because where you see them go off and come on.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. And you haven't lived until you've been burned by one of those bulbs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, or if you're wearing a top that has any kind of polyester in it, it'll just burn to your top and stay on it.
Yeah. Wardrobe likes that a lot.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Fantastic. Do you want to tell the lightsaber? Like, what's the background to a lightsaber? How did they figure out?
The background to a lightsaber. All right. Yeah. So, in the original script, it talks about Obi-Wan Kenobi. The stage direction is Obi-Wan Kenobi goes to a trunk and he pulls out a torch. And so a torch in England is a flashlight.
Right.
And flashlights were the very first element that was used with a speed graphic to power the flash bulbs that we're talking about. And then eventually they stopped being used flashlights on the side. It became something very dedicated, these speed graphic handles.
Right.
And so those eventually turned into the lightsabers that they used on the first movie. And what did they put on the lightsaber to make it look real?
To make it look real. Yes, make it look like a lightsaber. but they had rubber pieces that were windshield wipers off of British Army trucks.
Wow.
And then there was a thing that was off of a calculator,
Wow.
little bumpy part in the handle.
Wow, that's amazing.
But as soon as you put those elements on there, it looks good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic. I actually heard about that story on Antique Roadshow.
Right.
Somebody had a speed graphic flash unit,
Right,
and they
yeah.
told that story, and I'm like, no way. And I think I went down to ISS or History for Hire,
Yeah.
and I pulled out. I'm like, oh my god, that's it.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. When you have to like see it firsthand to like start to believe. You're like, oh yeah,
Right.
it kind of is, because you have like the sample with the hood still on it,
Yeah,
and all that too. That starts to like go through the stages of like completion in that. 'Cause with the first one that was presented, did it have that hood on it? And then they like, okay, let's take these elements off and bring them down.
Yeah, it's a
maybe.
good point. You can go online and they're reproducing those. There's a place in the Midwest that's reproducing them. They're actually building the speed graphic side handles.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and it's the man who originally designed it, because it's England, so the set decorator's doing a lot of the prop stuff.
Totally.
So you can buy it from him. So I'm looking at the website not because I want a lightsaber, but I'm going, I need some more speed graphic handles. So I might be getting something from that. But it really kind of goes into the philosophy of props. I mean, they don't need to be overly complicated to work well. They just
Right.
have to be appropriate.
Sure.
Yeah, I helped out on not too long ago on a couple days on a Star Wars show, and they brought me to their prop shop without violating any NDAs here. So I got to look at the prop shop, and there was just a room with nothing but like stuff that looks cool, like just like towards like windshield wipers and like you said,
Right.
like cameras and stuff. He just had shelves and shelves and shelves just with piles of like, well, if I see something that looks cool that can be like attached to build a lightsaber or a blaster, I'll get it, because you'll know down the line you're gonna have to be making lots of these things. So it's better like, oh, we need to put something that's cool that can clip on this, that just go in. You just go down the room and do it. I thought it was so freaking neat.
Yeah.
But there's a great philosophy behind that, because the great designer Raymond Loewy had a philosophy which he called Mea, most advanced yet acceptable. And so what you're doing is, when you're creating out of these items, your audience, I mean, it's advanced, it's in the future, this is a big deal that we don't have, but it's acceptable to your audience because they understand the shapes and the materials.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it's very subtle, but it's like, okay, I get it. I get what this is.
It's good. Yeah, it's crazy what you can use to make things look cool. Like it could be the simplest. You could just like, oh, I don't know what piece is missing to this, but let's just go to the toy store or the thrift store.
Absolutely.
And you could just find the missing element just like that. It's something as easy as that. You just don't have to overthink it most of the time.
And necessity is the mother of invention, because like in the early days of doing television, when we didn't have budgets, I would constantly be looking for base items to build off of, like when I did Alias, I mean, I can build every single gadget in Alias. I didn't have the budget, so I would go out and I would find something. I could like start with this, strip it down, and then add to it, and that's part of the real fun of what we do.
Yeah,
is having to just like jerry rig stuff together and make it look good.
But I think of the evolution of the prop business over these past many decades, where when we watch the Walton, those props look a lot different than what you did on Alias.
Right.
And it's like, okay, are we saying there's a higher bar now? Is it because high definition means things have to just look a lot cleaner and all that?
Correct. Yeah.
I think it's high definition.
100%. Because the first time that came out, I remember watching something on television, and I could see the seam in the woman's heel on the spike of her shoe.
Oh,
This where the sole met the heel of the shoe,
Right.
and I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of detail right there."
Yeah.
Because we could get away with a lot more back when video was so horrible. I mean, you try to look at some video now, like I love Barney Miller. You watch those old shows of Barney Miller, you can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just muddy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a different world now when it comes to that.
So when we do, we've done a lot of period motion picture studio sets, and we've done ones that are in the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we worked on what was that show? Hail Caesar. And so, we're trying to think of things. Okay, what could the prop master carry? And so we did a stack of fall dummies that were from that time period.
Nice.
I think about what they look like then versus what they look like now. Now
right.
there's articulation
Sure.
and a lot of things, and you have to have that.
Yeah. Well, you had to come up with a lot of that for Babylon. All the behind those old sets were incredible.
That was just such a fun movie, and it was such a good group of people to work with.
Right.
And I can't say enough really positive things about Damien Chazelle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a great vision. He just made it really easy to work with because he was very communicative, and you knew exactly what it was
That helps.
that he wanted to see. And the production designer was just super, and Gay, brilliant,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I know this is a massive segue, but you guys are like really into VW buses, right?
Oh, Mini Coopers.
Mini Coopers.
Mini
that's what it
Coopers.
was. I knew it was something. Mini
Go
Coopers.
Mini. Go Mini. Yeah, we do road trips across the United States in Mini Coopers.
Mini
we like
Coopers,
doing
yeah.
that, man. That was a
That's
lot of
pretty
fun.
cool.
And you would get to go to all these incredible places. And, to your point earlier, Mike, about, finding these people who are specialists at different things. You find that on the Mini Cooper rallies. You go to these little towns and going, oh, so you're the guy who knows all about string. All right. Good to know. I like that.
So you're saying collectors are just super into Mini Coopers? Is what you're
Definitely so. Yeah. No.
It's the passion, right? That's
But no, that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you know a good antique string guy also.
There's a string museum. What can I tell you?
There is a string museum.
But it's I think one of the great things about what we do as an industry is our ability to include other people in the film and TV industry so that everybody has a voice and it
Right.
amplifies, because people who are really into string, they're going to really care about that
Totally.
on screen. So why not have them do it? We worked with Frank Darabont on the Majestic, and that was of course the late Maureen Farley, who was the prop master on that. And it's about a town where a lot of these kids died during the war, and in their windows they have gold stars. And so Frank wanted to do something different, and Greg Melton was a production designer. He did too. So we were trying to think, rather than just printing up gold stars on pieces of paper, what can we do? And so there's actually a Gold Star Mother's Home, I think it was down in Long Beach, where these women have retired who lost children in service of our country. And so we had them make the gold stars and do it.
Very nice.
So, they and we talked about their journey and what was going on and about this movie. And so they got to be a part of the film, and that stuff's in there. And I think that's really important when we do read the scripts and all that. It's like, how can we bring in a bigger population and make them part of this?
I think you guys, I did a few years ago, I did a projection room, like a 70s projection room. And I think you guys introduced me or gave me the contact for Charles Massa.
Oh, I love Charles Massa. Yeah.
Which like I think I looked at you guys first. I was like, you guys just like right in between. We're like, and you guys, oh, Charles has it.
Yeah.
Go see Charles. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's like this, like, I think he's in his like 80s,
Yes.
little man, and he has 2 humongous warehouses of every film projector you could possibly think of. They pile over each other and go past, and he just repairs them and just lets the films use them. And we used them as a tech too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
as 2 warehouses and everything. And Quentin's used, apparently he's done screenings for Quentin too.
Oh, yeah.
And all that
He does George Clooney's, he does Barbara Streisand's.
Yeah.
And Charles is great. He, in the Projectionist Union, he has card number 2.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Wow. That's incredible. And that's what I love. I mean, because this whole country is filled with people who collect crazy stuff. And again, that's like such the fun of finding these and resourcing these things. I remember when I was working in Pittsburgh, I was working with Diana Staunton was the local, and it was Karen O'Hara.
Oh, I love Karen O'Hara.
Okay,
yeah.
And the 2 of them were working. It was Christie's. We were doing Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And there's this little industrial town, a little steel town outside of Pittsburgh called Bradford.
Yeah.
And they were down there. We were going to shoot there, and they went into this hardware store. and they were asking the man about something in the hardware store, and I think he overheard. I don't know the exact story, but he overheard them talking about wallpaper, something like that. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I got wallpaper." And they're like, "What?" And they brought him upstairs to the second floor. And the whole second floor was filled with vintage wallpaper. They like had rolls of Beatles wallpaper. It was crazy. And so the two of them, Diana Stoughton and Karen O'Hare, started a little business called Lambskins from Silence of the Lambs, which was the cutest business card ever. I wish I had it still. Where they sold out that whole stock of vintage wallpaper.
Wow, that's crazy.
That this guy just like had sitting in his attic, basically. It's crazy.
No, and they're usually when you find somebody with that passion about something, it's crazy because everything has somebody that's so passionate about it,
Right?
And I mean, they're usually more than welcome to rent it to you or whatever. But then if it's something like you find out, like I said, I use Charles as a tech. It's like it's so much easier to just be like, oh well. You know so much about this. I can get you on for a day, right? Like you want to just come on and like so you can
make it right,
make it completely right. Like any questions that pop up, you got it. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely,
you know, like for anything almost. Even if it's like if it's a heavy string, you have a string factory.
Again with the string.
No,
again with the
it could be a string factory. Somebody knows a lot about string. Might be something like in the show we did. Like the person was loading the projection reel with the film and doing the thing, and those things can like take off fingers if you do it the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, you take out an eye. You know, you were talking about the Beatles and it made me think. So Jim is also an author. He wrote a book, which is how many pages?
682.
Wow.
All about Vox amplifiers.
Nice.
And so we traveled to England quite extensively to do that. Oh. It's a lot about the Beatles and all that. Mm-hmm. And he worked a lot with Korg, which owns the Vox brand. But you also had an opportunity to work with Ringo.
Really?
Yeah, talking about going down and...
There was a Ringo video that was shot at the old theater in Pasadena, and it was kind of an homage to George and their television appearances. So we sent some television cameras and things.
Nice.
And Ringo was set up, and his tech didn't realize that they would need some soundproof pads for his cymbals and for his drums. And so the tech took me aside and said, "Do you have something? This is Saturday morning and it's pouring rain." We're in Pasadena. And I said, "I'll go get it." So I got in the van and about halfway there started hydroplaning.
Oh no!
And I think that was the day I swore off freeways. And I got to the prop house and I got the pads and came back and handed them to the tech who handed them to Ringo. And Ringo Starr looked at me and said, "Jim, you're a champ."
Nice.
We could retire on that.
Yeah, exactly, right?
But then when the Grammys Museum did a show on Ringo, we also had some stuff that we put in that show because we had reproductions of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it's just you just take your opportunities when you have. I mean, what an incredible business we're in. Jim could meet Ringo.
I know, right?
Oh yeah,
it's just no other business like that.
Yeah,
for sure. All the opportunities we get to do, places we get to shoot. It's incredible. Yeah. I just heard just yesterday that they're doing biopics on all 4 Beatles.
I heard that Sam Mendes was doing that in a
really, Sam Mendes,
really interesting concept too. The Beatles from each of their points of view.
Totally. Dennis Gassner's gonna design that. So
I love Dennis Gassner. He's really great.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what's your vision for History for Hire for the future?
It will continue on long after us.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Because it should be. There's definitely a place for it in our industry. I mean, we do work all over the world. Besides working in the entertainment industry, we do a fair amount of museum work and work for other kinds of businesses and all that. And we like being the ones that are the keepers and reiterator of good design and even bad design. Right. You know, it's like, hey, I'm sorry, here's this Tupperware, use it, go for it. But no, I think it's really important, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of craftspeople. So we're always trying to develop a good game plan so things can be maintained and
right.
move
So
forward.
you have people to carry the the mantle.
Yeah, and we're finding this the newer generation now, these people in their 20s are really into this old stuff. They're really into record players, they're really into records. You know, they like a much more analog.
Records are coming back for sure.
I have 1,000.
Oh,
You have 1,000?
Yeah.
Good.
I have a problem.
I thought having 600 DVDs was a lot. 1,000 records.
Yeah.
But it's like it. If it's there, then people continue to work with it and understand it, and they can just get it. Because really, these are just tools to tell stories.
Sure.
So let's keep our tools up and let some people borrow them. Some people come in just because they want to use an 8mm projector, or they want to just use a VCR or something like that.
Yeah.
That are non-film related or non-movie related.
Yeah, we have a lot of people come through and tour through, and it's.
I'll bet.
And they walk in, and one of the things that the way Jim has set up our company is just to look like an old-time prop house.
Right.
I mean, if you walk into our lobby, it's kind of this heterogeneous look of all this wacky stuff together. And
yeah.
We even have an homage to Ellis Mercantile in that we have polar bears in our lobby.
Nice.
Of course, they're doll polar bears, but they're big.
Right.
And so we have to do that because I certainly remember going to Ellis in the 70s.
100%.
And I want people to remember that place once existed and it was important.
It's like a museum there in every way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love walking through the aisles of History for Hire because it just totally throws me back, and it's just beautiful.
And your staff is just wonderful too.
They are.
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for a better group of people. I think they're really great. I mean, they've had a really hard 3 years, what with the pandemic and the strikes.
Totally.
I mean, everybody has,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for them for hanging in there. Some days it's just not really easy.
Yeah.
We hear a lot of difficult stories out there and have our own stories that we have to deal with too.
No, yeah. They've been giving a lot back to the PMG and support for prop masters also. So, yeah, shout out to them. Shout out to Remy especially too.
He
helps us out every corner. So.
He's so great and he's so talented. Remy's a graduate of Berklee College of Music. I mean, one of the finest music schools in the country.
Yeah.
So, we're looking for people that have that really unique and that different point of view, which is so very good.
Yeah. I love what he's doing with your social media also.
I know. His videos are like so fun.
Yeah.
I really do like that. But no, I just, as long as they want to do it, we certainly want to do it. There's a need for it. I think one of the things I'm
100%.
concerned about is that there are less places for prop masters and decorators to shop and that they go away because you just need more of a diversified voice out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I also have to give you a shout out for your soda cooler. I love that thing.
I know.
I'm sorry. It's just so nostalgic for me.
We love our old we have our certain things that we're just very sentimental about.
Yeah.
That's our soda cooler. That's been with us a long time.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, we're not going to keep you much longer
Alrighty.
than this. So, you guys, is there anything else you want to throw out there? Any other fascinating stories?
Gosh, let's see. Is there any story you can think of that was kind of...
I'm sure we'll think of them on the way home.
There you go.
We can have part 2.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, definitely.
I would say that really, as far as our industry goes, is seeing the shift over the years. I mean, once COVID happened, you had to go online with your inventory because people couldn't come in.
Right. So
I think people who don't put at least some of their inventory online are under it's a difficult situation for them. And, I want to tell you a story real quickly. And the last thing about the oldest prop master we ever met.
Okay.
And his name was Bill Sapp.
Okay.
And I don't know when Bill started, but he was Cecil B. DeMille's prop master.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did the 10 Commandments, which was filmed in Egypt and here. That was And so he was a great guy, and we met him because we had gotten some stuff from Paramount and had some questions and found out he was still alive, and he must have been 80 years ago. And I asked him, I said, what's the very first thing you would do as a prop master on a show, thinking it would be like us? You break down the script, you do research.
Right.
And he said, the very first thing you do is you build the runway to land the plane with the camera. And it was like, what?
Could you be a little bit more cryptic, please?
Yeah, it's like, really? And he went, yeah, because there was no runway, so we had to build the runway. And it was like, boy, I'm kind of glad the way things have morphed out.
Seriously, wow.
That's heavy.
That's not in my job description at all.
No.
Runway building.
I think all of our jobs have just evolved and changed over time.
Right.
Definitely so.
No,
That's fascinating.
I think every generation, the title of prop master is probably a new job title. Or the responsibilities and everything always shift in the way things are done, and technology and things that come along, and it's definitely changed. The more I hear from a lot of you guys that come on and everything, and how it was back then. So
I think maybe one of the things that I noticed with some of younger people getting in the business, and it has more about them, their generation, is that feeling that it'll be fine, it's good enough. And you certainly know it never is fine, and it never is good enough. And the minute you start limiting something, you've limited your director's choices and opportunities. And so, no, it never is. You got to keep working.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's got to be the best.
That's it.
Like you two guys. All right.
Thanks, pal. Couldn't do without you.
There you go.
Got time for one more story?
Yes, we have
please.
plenty of time.
As we talked about, we do a lot of shows where we recreate a film set from another time period, as we did with Once Upon a Time in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that comes up a lot is the accuracy in some of the old shows of period pieces was not particularly good.
Right.
And so we do background stuff for film sets, and we do wardrobe racks. And we have one that's the John Ford rack. It's all this cavalry stuff
Right.
that's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's what they use.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was cheeseball TV, right?
Yeah. So it would be inaccurate to send the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nuance that people don't get.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Being inaccurate, but
Yeah,
to be right.
exactly.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Really.
But I think that's great. I mean, that's our industry in a nutshell.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Definitely.
That's fun.
Well, cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming out. I
Thank you very
appreciate it
much.
On a Saturday.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm
absolutely.
glad we've been trying to get you guys for a while, so I'm glad we were able to finally coordinate and get it all
Yeah.
together. So I'm really happy to be able to talk to you guys about history for hire and the industry.
Can I give a shout out to the PMG?
Give a shout out
Please
to
do.
anybody you want.
I am so proud of this organization and so honored to be one of the sponsors of it. You do so much good for prop masters, and you do so much good for people as far as their career goes, their mental health, their support, and I'm really grateful. I see nothing but more and more good deeds going forward. Well done.
Thank you. Well, I mean, again, I have to shout out to the younger members of the PMG, Mikey and Teresa and everybody. They're just killing it out there. Bigger and better than I thought it would be at this point. So I'm thrilled.
Oh, this is a good time to actually promote something.
Yeah, please.
Our doors are open to associates by the time this comes out. So that's a huge thing to say. Not only are we accepting prop masters now, but we're accepting associate members. Right. So if you are an armorer, if you're a sales associate at a prop house, you can join the PMG now as an associate member. Prop assists, food stylists, anything that basically works directly with prop masters to do props on shows. We're accepting you, and people have been asking us for this for, past year and a half now. Right. So we're happy that we've finally been able to do it. And you have most of the benefits as a regular member. At a little bit of a lower dues too. So if you want to join us and get on with what we've been doing and support us and be an associate member, go over to our website at propertymastersguild.org and go to the apply to join site, and there should be a little tab that says associate members. So go ahead, join us and start adding to the list. We're really excited to be able to actually accept all, because a lot of the volunteers that have helped us out over the past year has been people like Remy and people like that are not prop masters, but just support us and support elevating props as a craft and stuff like that. So it's awesome to be able to open it up now and be like, no, now you guys can actually be a part of us, because I think it's important. So
that's great. That's great. Hey, what about March 9th? Is there anything happening on March 9th? Like a panel, a prop master?
Oh, yeah. No, that is happening. What's
that is happening.
Yeah, I know. What time is it?
By the way.
What day is it, though? Hey,
It's like, Mikey's checking to make sure that this is.
no, this is coming out after that.
Oh, okay.
So we had a fantastic panel.
It was unbelievable.
It was so good.
It was so good.
I'm so sad you missed it.
Yeah. That's how these go most of the time.
And I'm always IDing where we are.
I
And
know.
Mike's like, no, stop
I'll give it to Chris for not being the one who dated us this time. It was that's okay.
That's all right.
But yeah. So go to the website and join us. We're also still, we're continuing to expand for regular Prop Master members. So go ahead and apply, and we want to have the best of the craft, and
Yep.
we want to uplift us all together. So we got lots of things in store for 2024, and
for sure.
lots of big plans.
Nice.
Big things are happening.
Yes.
So come along with us. Do you want to say anything else before I close this?
No,
out,
I'm
or?
good, Mike. Take us out.
Okay.
Thank you for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. And thanks for everybody for tuning in to another episode of Prop Talk, the official podcast of the Property Masters Guild. Is brought to you by working prop masters and retired prop masters. If this is your first time listening, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment wherever you're hearing this or viewing this. We're on YouTube now, so make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to us and watch our episodes there. You can see all of our beautiful faces. If you'd like to know more information on the Property Masters Guild or have any questions for us here at Prop Talk, we'll be sure to answer it on the show. Go over to propertymastersguild.org, or you can email us at info@propertymastersguild.org. We're also on Instagram @_the PMG and all other socials. Pam, is there any place that they can go to find you on the internet webs?
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's our website. We are on Instagram and Facebook, historyforhire.com.
All right.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's it. And we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.